Baby, will you shut the door just a little bit so the... And what's that tampon, hon? Cool. Everybody's in a different spot, and I really hope that everybody can be inspired, encouraged in the spot you're in, that we get this plane off the ground and get it landed, and we all feel like we got somewhere. And I guess that's why sometimes I get a little nervous. I'm a very excitable, passionate person. Not a nervous person per se, but I can be intense. And I never had anything checked if I have ADHD or whatever, but I could very well. And my workout partner is like, yes, she does. If you've ever heard of the Appalachian Trail, my daughter and I hiked 2,200 miles, 22 miles a day almost, 2,200 miles. And on the Appalachian Trail, they have to give you a trail name. You can't go by your regular name. It's the craziest thing. And so they called me, come on in, you okay? They called me Squirrel. And I have to be the true squirrel because I hiked 2,200 miles thinking squirrel, squirrely, you know, I'm cute and funny and I'm kind of fast and I'm going, no. Have you ever watched the movie, got any small kids, Up? With that Doberman? I haven't even watched it yet. But I hiked 2,200 miles and didn't know that that's why they had given me the name Squirrel, because I'm like, squirrel. So my husband might interrupt me a couple times to keep me on track. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for you. I thank you for salvation. I thank you for the courage as I am going to ask people to step outside their comfort zone and face fears in an area that you have blessed me to come through. In the same kind of fashion, I am stepping out of the boat and dealing with my own fears to allow you to be you. So I praise you. Thank you for taking over my mind. The bottom line is if I keep my purpose and them first, it always works out. So have your way tonight. Bring them to hear what they need to hear. And I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Tonight we're going to talk about eating the right foods in the right amounts at the right time for the right reason. It sounds so easy, right? If we could do that, any goal that any of us have in our health and wellness would be accomplished. So in a multi-billion-dollar industry, that everything has already been said. There's nothing I'm going to say tonight that you probably haven't heard. But tonight's a little bit different. It's not so much about everything you're going to learn, but what I have found out in my journey of 30 years of food addiction, it's more about what I had to unlearn. We have habits and comforts that we have gotten a hold of that they're stubborn and they're really deep rooted. So it's more, hey, how are you? It's more about what I've had to unlearn, and that's going to be more of what we focus on tonight. My testimony, if you want to hear it in its entirety, is on our YouTube channel. If you text me, I would gladly send you a link, and it'll go into it deeper. But I was a food addict for 30 years. 13 years of that food addiction was total chaos. I was addicted to a lot of things. Food was the most prevalent thing that I have been addicted to for the 30 years that I was addicted. Into that 13 years, I really wanted to commit suicide. I gave my life to Christ, and in that found 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, that God did not give me a spirit of fear, but of sound mind, self-discipline, and self-control. So in that foundation, my mind used to spin in my head like, I'm ashamed to say my parents let me watch The Exorcist when I was little. Hopefully none of you watched that. But her head, Linda Blair's head, spins on top of her. My brain used to do that. And when I did get saved, God just stopped it and gave me a foundation to grow from. But from that point on, it took 17 years with Christ to unlearn all the bad habits that I had learned. We're going to talk about the phases of change, and it's going to be 5+1. And in the last phase of change, there is total freedom. I would have believed you before 10 years ago, because I said it myself. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Once a food addict, always a food addict. And what they mean is when an addict gets to a point to where they have freedom from their sin, freedom from this thing they're doing. You think, if I can just get there, if I can win the war, if I can wake up as an alcoholic and not take a drink, no matter how hard that is, I'm there. I've won. But there's one step further. There is a total freedom to where you don't ever want to have that drink again. In the last 10 years in my food addiction journey, I never thought I would get to where I am today, which is eating the right foods in the right amounts, at the right times, for the right reasons. And because of that is really why we're teaching this class. It's not rocket science. So what are we missing? I think that we set people free, the Word says, by the words of our testimony. So that's exactly what we're doing. So here we go. Let's talk about the 5 phases of change. If you're going to write something down, this is a good place to start. Back in the 80s, I had 2 scientists. What were they? Prochaska and Elemente or something, if you know them, and I've jacked it up. I've got the syllables right. And the Chaska and the... but they coined the phases of change, and it has really stuck spiritually, emotionally, physically, and financially since the 80s. We're going to add +1. But in phase 1, you've got this pre-contemplation. You're thinking, you know, maybe, just maybe, I might need to change. Contemplation, phase 2, you're like, you know, I don't feel good. I'm overweight. I'm inflamed. I'm sick. My doctor told me I have diabetes. You realize you do need to change. Phase 3 is your preparation. You're gathering intel. We're all of us in some form or fashion, except for the camera guy, my husband, Bill, anyone that got drug along with a friend. Most of us are in this preparation, gathering intel. And in here, there is a problem. At the end, we're going to talk about a resistance to change and how we fear that the effort that we're going to put in is not going to be worth the reward that we're going to get. And that happens because of the bad intel that's out there. A lot of fad diets, a lot of pills, a lot of do this and you'll get this. And the cons outweigh the pros in a lot of these fad diets and the bad intel that's out there. So we're going to try and write that tonight. My pastor came to me for help. I am a certified nutrition counselor, getting mastered certified. He hired me about 5 weeks ago because he can be a little pudgy. He really wants to be a little bit better example from the pulpit that people would respect him. And this is the one area that he still struggles in. And so after 5 weeks working together, he said this, and I think you need to hear it. He said, Angela, he goes, I'm kind of critical by nature. I really desire truth. He goes, I try and shoot holes in anything I can if it can't stick. He goes, I have to be honest. He said, after working with you for 5 weeks, he said, this is the first thing that I haven't been able to shoot holes in. He goes, this is something that I can do the rest of my life. It's not about what I can't have. It's about what I can have. So that was good. I'm going to share with you a foundation of truths, but it's kind of hard to hear that no matter how good or not good I do tonight, the bigger part in this equation to your success is you. I had a gal several years ago, our daughters played volleyball together, and we had a conversation on the bleachers similar to what we're going to talk about tonight. A year and a half later, this lady's flailing down the sidewalk at me. I have no idea who it is. It takes until she's right up in my face, and I see it in her eyes. And I said, Sister, what happened? And she said, that talk that we had a year and a half ago, that talk we had, I've never looked back. She lost 150 pounds. She was as wide as she was tall. And I wasn't around her at all for that year and a half. We had a 20-minute conversation, and she took it and ran. It's not about me. my testimony and what we're going to share tonight will get you rocking. But where you're at in the cycles of phase, so phase 3, we're in our preparation, we're gathering intel. Phase 4 is action time. You're going to write your goals down, you're going to make a plan, and you're going to start knocking them off little at a time. We're going to focus on what we can do, not what we can't do. I want you to, my husband's going to do a good job, hopefully, because as I was sharing with him earlier today, what I was going to share tonight, he had some solid things. He says, well, what if I don't want to eat like that? What if I don't want to do that? And I go, are you the antagonist in this situation right here? And but he had good points. He was like, I'm just telling you, honey. He goes, from some people's point of view, because we only got a short amount of time, they're not going to want to do what you're doing at this point. So if I say something, and we're talking about Whole Foods in a minute, that you're in your mind start shutting down and go, oh yeah, nope, time out, I'm out, I can't do that. Don't let yourself get intimidated. Interrupt me, write something down. We're going to save about 30 minutes at the end of the class to ask me a question. So if you can't, it's never about perfection. My daughter makes me look like I'm terrible just because we started this when she was about 10, she's 30, and just growing up eating this way, it was natural for her. She had less to unlearn. So all of a sudden, it's really who I still fight. Tonight, I need to back this up or I'm going to trip over this. I got some Oreos and some Pop-Tarts. This is not part of the eating plan. You're like, yeah, I can do this. Chocolate-covered pretzels. This was one of my addictions. Whoo, I don't know what it is about it. I just love it. But she's like, ew, Mom. She wouldn't even think, she wouldn't even think about eating. Because as you do confront habits and your comforts and you learn new habits and new comforts, the truth is, I don't crave these anymore. But she wouldn't, because she was at such a young age. She was like, why would anyone crave that? So fourth phase is action. Fifth phase is maintenance. Now maintenance, Del Monte and Prochaska, whatever their names were, they stop here at maintenance. Maintenance and action can be in the same sentence at times, depending on how sick are you, how bad do you feel, how much weight do you have to lose, where are you at? You can get to a point to where you're doing the right thing and you feel good about it, but you can only lose so much weight so fast when you're doing it the right way. So you might be in a maintenance and an action at the same time. That's good, that's okay. But the goal is to get you to freedom, to where you have arrived at the goal that you want. You feel good. I'll be 56 in a couple months. I'm training to go do the Appalachian Trail again. It's a 2,200-mile journey. It feels good to feel good. Is there any guarantees? No. But people use that for an excuse sometimes. Well, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to die of this or that anyway. Really? How about let's just give ourselves the best shot we can while we are here. So it does feel good to feel good. The goal is to get you to freedom. All righty. I really wish this first part was more sexy. But here you go. If you get nothing tonight, this next part will change your world. I just had a guy a little while ago, just made my night. Name is Chris. He came in. I go, dude, you are leaning down. He goes, yeah. I did what you said. I came off wheat. He's down 20 pounds in a short amount of time. Let's talk about this. At the top of your page, I want you to write these two words, capital letters, underline. If we're on a Word document, italic it, bold it, do whatever you got to do. Whole Foods. And you're probably thinking, oh, that's it? Tell me that's not all she's going to give us tonight. Whole Foods. I am going to go into a little bit greater detail because I think when you have knowledge of something, why Whole Foods? The United States government, since the mid-1940s, has not done us any favors. If we put some heroin, stay with me, in a baby's bottle, and then you put a little more heroin in their cereal, 2 or 3 and 5 and 6 and 9 and 10, we would not be surprised if they were heroin addicts by the time they were 12 or sooner. Well, the standard American diet, standard American diet, in the mid-1940s has done something. My grandmother, my mom's mom, made a decision. I'm not going to fault her for it. She didn't know what she didn't know. But in that, when Rockefeller met with the American government in the name of saving these third world countries from starvation, they created something called hybrid wheat. It was supposed to be for hunger to these kids. Well, in short order, very short order, we were all eating it. And this is what happens. And so you're like, okay, hybrid wheat, I've heard about it. What's the deal with that? The deal is everything. A lot of you have heard by now this saying called glycemic index. Our bodies are designed to eat whole foods, God's foods. Every food made by God or a man, company that has used whole foods to make products that you'll see up here at the end of class, these are some of my favorites, these chickpeas, have made foods that are lower glycemic. When they created hybrid wheat in the mid-1940s, now this wheat, which is in everything, you might think, well, wheat, now that I've planted this seed, when you leave here, I want you to start reading labels. Wheat is in everything. It digests quicker than sugar now. So if we have these Oreos, for instance, and I'm going to do this because I just like this little illustration. $400 calories or so in these Oreos, a little bit more, 480. When the body ingests, you heard basic metabolic rate. How long have we heard that? And nutritionists up to not very long ago, in this last decade, have taught us that everybody's basic metabolic rate, be it 1,500 calories or 2,000 calories per day, they said per day. Well, I'm not a rocket science, but I'm thinking, okay, I can eat 2,000 calories per day. If I don't eat all day and I've got one more meal left, I'm starving by now. If I eat 2,000 calories in that day, in that meal, that still puts me in my 2,000 calories a day, I'm good. I've had nutritionists tell people, these are people that have degrees that work at Vanderbilt. It's calorie in and calorie out. If you choose to eat Snickers all day long, that's your choice. I am sorry. Either they never had a weight problem, they didn't take their schooling very serious, or they're getting taught bogus crap. Because what happens our bodies were never designed to have our blood sugars spike the way modern wheat does. Let's use this for an example, but it can be wheat bread. If you have a piece, anything you buy in the middle sections of the supermarkets that says 100% whole wheat, it will spike your blood sugar for not very many calories. So if I eat this and my blood sugar starts going up, we would all be dead by now if we didn't have pancreases. Our bodies were not designed to ingest this high glycemic level of food. And wheat is 90% of the culprit. That's why we're spending the time on it. If you go away from here and you start studying, you'll be like, whoa, she's right. Not that there's not some other high glycemic foods out there. The gluten-free bandwagon has chocked everything full of cornstarch, potato starch, and tapioca starch just to get us off wheat, but it's actually high glycemic as well. But those are a smaller percentage. The biggest problem for most of us in this room has been wheat. So when that blood sugar starts spiking, even at 400 calories, I'm way far from my 2,000 calories for the day. I got 1,600 more calories to go beyond this. When this blood sugar starts going up, my system starts going, whoa, danger, Will Robinson, problem. Pancreas pours out insulin, and it forces that blood sugar down as quick, if not quick, as it went up. And in that, only 400 calories, boom, to fat. I've been doing some kind of counseling since I was 15 years old, and people have come up and told me, I don't know why I'm fat. I don't eat very much. I believe them. Because if no one would probably eat Oreos all day. I don't know, maybe you would. But this is not that much. If any one of you saw somebody consume 4 packets of this a day, and that's it, you would not say that person was a grotesque food binger. But yet they would be very unhealthy and fat on just 4 of these a day. I grabbed this because it's, was my go-to. 400 calories in just this. I could eat just this or all these apples. When do you go in your refrigerator and grab 4 apples at a time and consume all of them? One more little story. Pastor Dylan asked if I could use his name. He said, of course, I live in a glass house, so that's good. I'm glad I checked because I probably would let it slip anyway. Part of what I ask people to do when they work with me is to food journal. We really have to take a serious look, really more for you, because what you think you eat and what you really are eating are 2 different things. He was hungry, but he's been really doing good for 5 weeks. He's worked on unlearning bad behavior, so he's on this whole food diet. He was hungry, he got eaten what she thought was too much. He goes, oh man, I got to go journal this now. He goes, this is going to be terrible, I'm going to get in trouble. But when he actually journaled it, he'd only consumed 500 calories compared to what he normally would have eaten given the same amount of foods. Because whole foods have so much more bulk, not to mention the nutrients. So if you get nothing else from tonight, is to really take a hard look at where you're at with your program. I just wanted to share with you my last 2 days of eating, thinking sometimes it's good to hear, and this is just whatever, this is just normal. Didn't try for you guys, I just wrote down whatever. It was kind of after the fact, I already just did it. I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and write down Tuesday morning. One of my new go-tos, anybody heard of these? An ancient grain overnight oat. You can get them in the Kroger section with the yogurt. Really good. Oatmeal in itself is not bad, but this has several nuts, buckwheat, chia seeds, flax seeds, so just a whole nother level of healthy fats. And there's so much we could talk about that whole foods do for you with your healthy fats. But I guarantee a lot of you, if you'll just come off wheat completely, will find what a difference it'll make. And when you do that, you have self-control to start. So when I made the example with the heroin addict, my point was that because of the standard American diet, we have become inundated to be food addicts in some shape, form, or fashion. Maybe you weren't making yourself throw up like I did. Maybe you didn't obsess over every single calorie that you ingested. Maybe you don't hate what you see in the mirror. Maybe you don't like it a lot, but you're just like, oh my goodness, I can't even look at myself. Even if you're not there, the wheat in food has inundated us to be a type of food addict. And if you want to, yes, sir.
So, are you saying no Ezekiel bread?
No, Ezekiel bread is actually if you look at it, wheat was not a culprit once upon a time. So yes, great question, thank you.
What about Dave's Killer Bread?
Nope, that's a no-go. That's a no-go compared to Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel bread's amazing.
But oatmeal's okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, cool. Yes, that Ezekiel bread is a sprouted wheat and an ancient grain wheat. I stay away from it because it's so confusing, because they can't actually call it a genetically modified wheat. So people are saying, well, this wheat says non-GMO. I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure of what's going on in the farming industry. I have personally studied Ezekiel bread and it was good. Yes, ma'am?
What kind of oat?
What kind? That's a great question. Yes. Jordan, do you need me to repeat any kind of questions? Or does it matter? Okay. She asked what kind of oatmeal. Oatmeal is one of the only grains, I think it is the only grain, I just don't want to say something wrong. And There's no difference beside a 1-minute Quaker oat and a steel cut oat except for the fact that they pressed it. So if you're like me and convenience, she's like, yes! If convenience is, I don't know why I'm so big into convenience right now, because at my age, without any kids, I have time, I just ran out of want to. So it's got to be kind of quick for me. Okay, so where are we at? Whole foods, whole foods, whole foods. Glycemic index is not just a saying, it is everything. So low glycemic foods. This was one of the most successful, I don't want to call it a diet because it wasn't a diet, but this was one of the most successful plans, books of all time because it wasn't a diet. It was a whole foods eating program that taught you how to eat whole foods. And I picked it up because we're going into the amounts. This man, in all his infinite wisdom, he really has a passion to help people. So if he ever made millions, I don't know, but it wasn't his, he didn't start it for that reason. He started it because he struggled and he helped people. And so if he made millions, I hope he did. But when it comes to the right amounts, you ready for this high-tech technology? Everybody do this. Conrad. There you go. This is the amount of food. You have 3 ways that you ingest calories. They're proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. So in those, he said this amount 6 times a day. Great book. I suggest you buy it. I'm a little tighter. If you work with me personally, he gives you, and you guys are probably saying, no, bring on the book. He gives you a cheat day. On the 7th day, you eat what you want when you want. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not going to do that, okay? Hey, but there's no shame involved. If you just do it on your own and you come to me, I'm like, okay, we'll work on that. He says go for it. This is what I don't like in doing that when you're a food addict. It's like managing your heroin on the 7th day. It triggers you to not be able to start day 8 back clean again. My personal opinion. The man's made millions and he's helped a lot of people. So he'll tell you this amount right here, 6 times a day. I'm going to tell you with amounts 2 things. When it comes to, I don't like to count calories, I really don't. But I do believe that there's a time to count a little bit for your portion sizes. We're big eaters. I'm 155 pounds. I eat whole foods all day long. I really don't. I'll have empowered cheats. Nothing crosses these lips without me realizing I'm making a decision. Sunday after church, I'll let my hair down a little bit. I might enjoy some french fries now and then. But for amounts, I am going to ask you to do 200 to 500 calories. I want to get calories off the table as quick as we can. 200 to 500 calories per meal, 5 times a day. So if you're not a big eater and you're eating only 1,000 calories 5 times a day, it's a little low, but I do put that in there hoping. But if you go up to 500 calories, when you're eating all whole foods, the glycemic index is going to be low enough. Even at 2,500 calories a day, most of us females in here, when you eat all whole foods, especially if we can get an exercise program going for you a little bit, you probably, even if you don't lose a lot of weight, you will lose weight slowly because we don't got this blood sugar spike going on, and you'll feel a whole lot better. Because what we forget to mention sometimes is all the nutrients that's in whole foods. We crave all this junk food, and we spend our whole time telling us, no, I can't have this, I can't have that. But when you actually start eating whole foods and you realize the payoff of how good you feel, it's very addicting in a good way to say, I don't want to go back. So with amounts, I got 2 things. We're going to do 200 to 500 calories for 5 meals a day. And then I'm going to ask you to count protein grams only. Proteins are the one thing, especially the way that we've set up our eating in the United States of America, that it's a little tougher. You got to shop it, you got to prepare it, you got to cook it, you got to prep it, you got to store it, you got to have some type of refrigerator or something with you as we go. So protein is definitely the concentration that if we focus on that, again, kind of like the low glycemic foods, if you get 75 to 150 grams of protein in a day, it'll keep you out of a ditch. Everything will run smoother. Not going to spike your blood sugar. When your blood sugar gets spiked, depending on where you're at in this inundated world of food addicts. For me, when I was in my hardcore phase of food addiction and I was out of control, as soon as I would eat something, when I was in college, my mom would send me 20 bucks in the mail back in the 80s when you could send cash in the mail. I would go to McDonald's and eat their biggest burger, fries, and milkshake. I would go to the Jack in the Box and do the same thing. And then I would go to Burger King and do the same thing back when 20 bucks would get you full meal deals at all three of those, and then go throw it all up. I told myself when I opened that 20 bucks, my parents did not have a lot of money. I did know better. I wasn't convicted back then. I was just going to go to McDonald's. I was just going to go get a meal. I deserved it. I've been eating in the cafeteria all week long, but I'd go to McDonald's, and as soon as I would get going, and especially top it off with a milkshake, that would just get me going. And the next thing you know, like a heroin addict, overdosing, I would eat till I was so full. I couldn't fit any more in my stomach. So depending on where you're at with your food addiction, these crap carbs and wheat, as much as sugar, will send you off the self-control and out of control. Let's move on to the right times. Where are we at? Somewhere. The right times, since we're on protein, when you start tracking this, you're going to find at 4 o'clock, well, darn it, I'm only at 30 or 40 grams. I need to get, 50 more grams in, so you want to eat it all at one time. You really want to try and disperse your protein throughout the day to keep yourself on a regimen to where your blood sugar stays stable. Need to learn to get that protein in 3 to 5 times a day. We have Epic bars here. You can get them anywhere. You can get them online. You could boil hard-boiled eggs at night. You can grab them, put some of those in your lunch. But between coming off wheat and then purposefully ingesting your protein as you go will be 2 things that will change your life. See what I got for right amount. One more thing for right time. So protein, let's try and get it throughout the day. And one more thing that I got to be honest, I probably would be 10 pounds lighter if I didn't struggle because I am in a comfortable position. You'll lose weight or you'll lose body fat quicker, both depending on what your goal is and how much you're eating and how much you're working out. If you will not consume even healthy carbohydrates within 4 to 5 hours of your bedtime. Your body, you've done everything just right. You're trying to lose body fat. You're getting ready to go into your fast for the night and sleep. Your body will burn body fat. It wants to burn body fat through the night. But when you ingest, again, even good carbohydrates, they break down and fill your muscles with glycogen, and your body will go to that first. It's going to burn glycogen first. So when you're trying to lose, eat your carbs. Eat your healthy carbs. If you have a little bit of a snack here or there, sometimes in the beginning, going to all whole foods and coming off this one thing it is you do is sometimes tough. So we'll move in moderation and we'll cut it back and we'll cut it back. If you're going to do that during the day and come off 4 to 5 hours before bedtime to give your body a chance to burn body fat in the middle of the night. Okay, less than 15 minutes. I want to wrap up with the right reasons. We've covered the biggest part of why I really want you to concentrate on whole foods. And wheat really is the culprit. It's not our friend. Is there an ancient grain, like Kevin said, in Ezekiel bread? 100%. There also was a really good bread I used to get at Whole Foods called manna bread. It was yummy. I've not found it for a while, but Whole Foods is such a ways out there. I haven't gone and looked. A lot of good ancient grain products. Spelt tortillas, they're awesome. Spelt, S-P-E-L-T. So we're convicted over Whole Foods on where we need to go. Take a hard look at where you're at. Maybe start journaling and finding out. You might find out with my clients, I try and write down their habits. In a week's time, we might have cheated Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Well, the next week, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And another week, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Wait a minute here. What's going on Tuesday at 3 o'clock? And you'll find patterns like that. That something like that, if they're all that easy, is super easy to unlearn. I don't know how much I deal with emotional eating. I got to be honest, I'm not sure. I've dealt with a whole slew of damaged emotions, but what part that did with my eating, I'm not sure. But I see people all the time that are stressed with work, and they find themselves consuming before they really realize it. Sometimes I can't even get them to journal because they can't face the truth. They just, if they don't see it and don't write it down, it didn't happen. But 4 weeks later, we're doing everything just right, but we're not getting any results, then there might be a medical issue. This gal's worked for Dr. Bernoulli. Anybody heard of Dr. Bernoulli? I love it when I call up there and y'all put me on hold and I hear Dr. Bernoulli talk. I hate when you guys come back on the phone and say, no, he was getting to the good part. I'm just listening. Amazing man of God who's very, he's awesome. Is there a possible health problem that you're dealing with of why you're not losing weight? Maybe. But can I tell you, in 40 years, I'm going to say probably not. Probably wheat and the mistakes that we're making. Sometimes it's just enough, but I did good all week long. Well, that one time you turn your head and next thing you know, you've eaten this or eaten that. When you had that cheat night, when you're out with the family and you're eating pizza, 7 pieces of pizza later, you've consumed 3,000 calories in a sitting. It adds up quick, and we've kind of undone. So take a look at that. Talked about the right amounts, the right times. Let's close my section with the right reasons. So my why is because if I practice what I preach, when you talk, I really enjoy one-on-one better, and people know you're coming from a form of authenticity and realness, and they feel that you've been either where they're at, where they want to go, you change lives quicker. So my why is that I can use the God-gifted ability in me of being a natural encourager to try and impart my journey to help people achieve their journey. That's my reason. Let's talk really quick about resistance to change. What's the number one reason we have resistance to change? This one makes me really mad. Makes me really sad. I've had an emotional week, so I'll try not to cry. Number one reason why people don't change is you believe you can't. It's for everybody else, but not you. Through the abuse that I did sustain, I had to go back. I was really angry at my parents for a long time. About 5 years ago, I had to call my dad and say, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for imparting to me one thing. He told me my whole life. Now, there was some mixed signals, but he told me my whole life, there's nothing you can't do. I raced go-karts and motorcycles and snowmobiles with the boys. I didn't even know it was different. I guess I would have thought I was the only girl out there, but I don't know. You just do what you do when you're 5 and 8 and 12. I'll go out and hike the Appalachian Trail by myself. But I had to call my dad and say, thank you for imparting to me, as skewed as it was, a belief that there's nothing I can't do. I don't know how to help you overcome, but I know who does. There are things I've had to pray about, like, all right, Lord, why do I keep struggling with this or whatever? If you feel, I had a heart-to-heart, one of my clients, she wouldn't mind me telling, she's a dear friend of mine. For 20 years, I've poured my heart out to try and help this lady. She was sexually abused herself. and she can't get past the fact that she doesn't believe she's worthy of it. Who told you that you can't do it? I will tell you, all the success stories I've seen, there's nothing you can't do.
Amen.
Seriously, the body, we might have to be a little bit more creative with something. We might have to get more, talking about no carbs at nighttime, walk a little more, whatever. But the sky's the limit. There's nothing. I encourage people. They asked me to give the talk when I was a brand new Christian at this educational deal, nutrition, and then the workout part and the spiritual part. They had asked me earlier to do one of them. I knew it was going to be the workout part or the nutrition. I was a baby Christian. I was not ready. I just started reading the Bible. When they asked me to do the spiritual part, I was like, oh no, I'm not your girl. But I told them, and you should have seen these pastors' wives' eyes get the size of quarters, but I hold to it. If you get a picture in your mind of what you want to achieve, maybe it's a lingerie picture, maybe it's Victoria's Secret, I don't know. Maybe it's just a lady in a business suit that's wearing the size 5 or whatever you think is good. If you can get it in your mind of what you want to achieve, I promise you the power of the mind is crazy incredible. I don't know if you follow women's bodybuilding. In 1980s, Karina Everson was a Miss Olympia of the day before they got really kind of grotesque and too big. She looked amazing in my eyes. The power of the mind. In 1984, I saw the picture of Karina Everson and I said, right there, for whatever reason, right, wrong, or indifferent, I said, that is perfection in my mind. My dad already said, there's nothing I can't do. I've already got addictive behavior. Personally, I'm not afraid to work. I'm going to get this done. Through all that pain, when I won Miss Tennessee in 2008, if you took Miss Tennessee, Karina Everson, back then, not what they'd become, and my picture, because in my mind's eye, my whole life, that's what I set myself out to achieve, I looked really close. You cut the heads off, we were really close. But again, I just empowered myself that that's what I wanted to. So I encourage you, if there's something you want to see, you want to achieve, maybe it's not a picture, maybe it's something, maybe it's hiking the AT, maybe it's going out and hiking with friends. Connie has her daughter and her husband that went out for years and hiked without her. She's like, no more. I'm catching the next hike. So whatever that is. So number one reason that people resist change is you don't believe you can. Stop that. Start talking positive. Start talking about what you can have. Work through it. Number two is you're unclear why you need to change. That can be an issue. I think that maybe not everybody would have a problem with that in this class. I think you're here for a reason. So maybe that's not so much for this class. I'm just going by statistics. Number three is fearing the unknown. 4, I like this. The flesh is hardwired and stubborn. You're really just kind of set in your ways, and you really, it's not about what you're not willing to learn. We've spent an hour and a half by the time we're done. There's not a book you probably won't read. There's not a seminar you won't watch. But it's more about what you're willing to unlearn. So that, I hope, is a takeaway for the night. Having trouble, number 5, adapting to new ways. Yep, sure. Change is hard. Change is hard. And if you can't eat the way... Did I finish my eating, or did I just go off on a tangent? Ha! Nice. Squirrel! Oh, that's great. I picked up this, didn't I? And we just were off to the races somewhere else. That's awesome. If you can't do this, I had a brekkie for breakfast Tuesday morning. I was still hungry an hour later. I said 200 to 500 calories, right? This is 210 calories. I'm like, I'm still within my calories. So I grab another one an hour later. 2 hours after that, I grabbed a Bison Epic bar. At 1:30 that day, met my husband at Urban Cantina. We have a wholesale run there. They carry our products. I had their root vegetable bowl with some blackened fish on top. I have no idea how many calories that was. Maybe a little bit more than the 500, I'm not sure. But it was all whole foods. It was great. I had a pretty low calorie morning. At 5 o'clock, I went from 1:30 to 5 o'clock. It's a little longer than I like to go. Every 3 hours, I kind of have this little internal clock that goes, yeah, you need to eat something, even if it's a handful of nuts. 5 o'clock, I had a cup of frozen raspberries. 7:30, we had steak the night before. I did 3 ounces of a ribeye steak on top of a kale salad. And I would be a little leaner if I didn't do this. But at 10 o'clock at night, it's hot. I wanted something sweet. I went and grabbed 20 frozen grapes. I take organic grapes and I freeze them. They last a little longer when they're frozen. So I was guessing at 20. I grabbed a handful, bushel kind of thing for my husband and I gathered probably about 20. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday, brekkie again. A couple hours later, I had a vegan sugar cookie from here. I spent most of the day here. So this day is 1 o'clock. I had a keto turkey grande lunch. 2:30, I had more frozen grapes. I had to run home, let the dog out. 3:30, I was back here, had a keto super coffee, had a cup of almond milk an hour after that, had a half a blueberry muffin here, kale salad again that night. Honey, can you grab that kale salad kit out of the fridge? I want to show them what my go-to these days has been. And then 2 pieces of Ezekiel bread with sunflower butter and Truvia again at nighttime, which is against my carbohydrates deal, which is why I'm 155 and not 145. So there you go. So, but if that's too hard for you, what can you do? If you don't like change, if you're like, man, that just doesn't sound good to me. Start concentrating on whole foods. What can you do? Thank you, sweetheart. I stayed away from these forever until I just got so lazy. I'm like, I got to get more salads in. So I started grabbing them. Do you know there's some of them I throw the dressing away? These little croutons have wheat in them. I throw those away half the time. But they go on sale for like 3 for $11. I'm thinking, by the time I buy the produce, throw some away, this feeds Connor and I, 3 for $11. What's the math on that? We're down to a couple bucks. I'm like, yeah. So this has been a go-to, just little things that help. Really quick, so I want Connie to get up here real quick and then leave a little bit of time for questions if we have it. But I don't know. You don't like change, benefits won't outweigh. Okay, last one is you are concerned that you put the work into it and you're not going to get the payoff. I want to encourage you. I got 2 more things to say. Don't worry. Is the scale relative? Yes. So when I say don't worry about the scale, I really mean it, but I really don't mean it.
Yeah.
Right. Data only. What Connie and I like to do, I've been working with her for a while now, I really would like you to get on it once a week, write the number down just as a number. Write it down. Don't even let it register. I mean, if you want someone else to do, if you are as messed up over the scale as I used to be, and you can't look at it, then have someone else look at it and write it down. Once a month, take a quick glance. But after that, don't really look at it till let's say you started at 180. I don't want you to study it until 90 days later. Do what you're doing for 90 days. 90 days later, have you made any ground? If you weigh 175, praise the Lord, you lost 5 pounds. Start over. That's your new number, 175. Write the number down once a week. Don't look. It's going to mess with you if you can't keep your mind away from it. Once a month, but then every 90 days. Regroup every 90 days. That's my advice for that. Last thing I'm going to say, and I meant to, and there's an empty chair right there. We're going to use that. When it comes to the right reasons, there's somebody not here tonight. I've been working on him for about 3.5 years. He was morbidly obese. And he kept, every time I would see him, I'm not going to tell you where because it's so local, you might be, he'd always tell me, I'm kind of that person, people are convicted, I walk around and they just start telling me what they had for lunch. I could even ask. And sure enough, every time I saw him, he'd be like, oh, I had this, I didn't eat any carbs, I did this, I did that. I'm really getting serious this week, Ange, I'm getting serious. He told me last week he was going to be in class tonight. He didn't make it. Had a heart attack 3 days ago. Not saying that for scaring you. Who knows? Who knows, we would have started 3 years ago. So don't wait any longer to challenge yourself to do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do.